Jay-Z is one of the most successful musicians in the world, but few realize that his successes also extend into the CPG industry. So, what exactly can you learn from the hip hop legend? So, in this new content series, this is actually the third piece of content in that series. I want to blend kind of two of the things that I love most. One that you guys hear a ton about, that is the CPG industry. I'm constantly talking about that, obviously. But the second, and one that I don't talk as much about, is hip hop music. I've always believed that hip hop and CPG entrepreneurship are linked together. This is probably why you see so many hip hop artists that have become involved in the CPG industry as entrepreneurs or through investing. If you have consumed the earlier two episodes in this series that covered Notorious B.I.G. and Nas, you know I select a collection of lyrics from the hip hop artist that provide keen lessons for anyone within the CPG industry. What will make this episode a little bit different than those other two is that Jay-Z can speak about CPG entrepreneurship from a place of personal knowledge. For those that are not aware, Jay-Z actually just completed a sale of 50% stake in the champagne brand Armand de Brignac, which is more commonly known as Ace of Spades, to Moet Hennessy, the wine and spirits division of the luxury giant LVMH. But though that $250, $300 million exit of Armand de Brignac is obviously extremely impressive and puts Jay-Z really on the upper echelon of CPG entrepreneurs just from that one event, I actually want to talk about how it even became a thing because I find the story to be exceptionally intriguing and interesting and really kind of proves a large point about business and knowing your customer. Jay-Z, like many rappers during the mid to late 90s into the mid 2000s, were known to drink the luxury champagne brand Cristal. Hip hop culture made Cristal a household name. But in a 2006 interview, the managing director of Cristal was asked by the interviewer if the association with hip hop could hurt the brand. And he was quoted as saying, "That's a good question, but what can we do? We can't forbid people from buying it." Jay-Z felt like this was a slap in the face. So during that same year, he actually reached out to the owner that did Armand de Brignac. He set out to create a partnership. Within that partnership, he gained about a 50% ownership in the brand, and he highlighted the brand for his popular single, Show Me What You Got, in the same year. In 2014, Jay-Z acquired the rest of the shares and was the wholly owner of Ace of Spades. HOVA, gold bottles of the Ace of Spades. But you might be surprised to know that this isn't actually the only CPG brand that Jay-Z owns. He owns another alcoholic beverage spirit company in which he founded in the same year that he acquired the rest of the ownership in Armand de Brignac. So in 2014, he founded Douce Cognac, which is a joint venture with Bacardi. But outside of owning those two alcoholic beverage brands, Jay-Z has also been an investor in the CPG community for a while. I'm probably going to miss a ton of different names that he's put money in because he's had a pretty long, extensive experience in investing in the space, but just a handful of ones that come off the top of my head. The earliest one that I could find was Carol's Daughter, which he invested in a decade before it was purchased by conglomerate L'Oreal in 2014. He was a recent investor in Oatly during the star-studded kind of celebrity round of $200 million that they raised before they IPO'd a year later. He's also an investor in Partake Foods, Merit Beauty, Misha's Kind Foods, and he also just started and founded a cannabis investment arm and launched a brand called Monogram. So as you can see, Jay-Z has the type of CPG entrepreneurship and investing resume that would put him in the top tier of the space. It's also my belief that there are lyrics within the extensive catalog of music that has reached over 2.5 decades that will provide a ton of lessons to anybody within the CPG industry, especially CPG entrepreneurs. And I decided to pick out a handful of my favorite and kind of add some extra commentary on how it has been interpreted and put into action throughout my CPG career. Let's start right off the bat with arguably the most famous lyric from Jay-Z, or at least the most famous one that gets applied to the entrepreneurship space. But it's one that can be found in Diamonds from Sierra Leone, the remix that was on Kanye West's second studio album in 2005. And this is where he said, "I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman." And everybody knows in today's social media world, you're not just a person, you are an entity. Some might push back on that notion, and maybe you think, I don't focus on my personal brand, so I don't have a personal brand. Everybody has a personal brand if you manage it or not. But Jay-Z's lyric there makes us understand that Jay-Z knows that he is a business. He's more than just a person, and that he needs to express himself through the businesses he owns. Everything needs to be aligned. So it's important for any CPG entrepreneur to understand that if you layer on your personal brand on top of your CPG brand, you create something a little bit more unique than anything else in the market because nobody's built like you. You design yourself. And that kind of rolls into the next lyric that I want to bring up from Jay-Z. That is, remind yourself, nobody built like you. You design yourself. And similar to the last kind of knowledge that Jay-Z dropped for CPG entrepreneurs, this could speak to both your personal brand or the CPG brand. What makes you unique makes you valuable. Make sure to spend time critically understanding exactly what makes you unique. And through that understanding of the uniqueness of you, then think about how you can amplify that in the market. The next Jay-Z lyric that I want to mention is, "Next time you see the homie and his rims spinning, just know that my mind is working just like them, the rims that is." It should go without saying, but any CPG entrepreneur knows that your mind is constantly spinning every day. And that could be a positive and that could be a negative. But you have to have a very strong foundation. You need to understand your why. You need to understand why you're kind of waking up each day and doing what you're doing. So if your wheels are spinning and you're on a strong foundation of your why, that will actually propel you to further growth. That will create a ton of momentum in the market. But if you aren't on any of that kind of strong ground, you end up just kind of spinning your wheels in the mud and not going anywhere. The next Jay-Z lyric is, "Put me anywhere on God's green earth, I triple my worth." So this is a Jay-Z lyric that I have often used throughout my CPG career, be that with interviewing early on or maybe through talking to clients, the initial discovery phase of projects, because I believe a large part of CPG entrepreneurship comes down to understanding what skills you possess that create the most value, and then being confident that you can go out and market and sell those skills. And this is exactly the same if we're talking just about the CPG brand, where you have to understand what makes it valuable in the market. And then you need to align all strategies and tactics to ensure that you can get that value proposition out and amplify it the most in the market. Another great Jay-Z lyric is, "I sell ice in the winter, I sell fire in hell. I'm a hustler, baby, I sell water to a well." If you are a CPG entrepreneur, you need to be the best salesman in your company. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to handle all the sales activities, especially if you are well out of the initial startup phase. You're now in the scaling phase. You have team members. You have the ability to kind of hand off some of that to them. But it's still a pretty simple cause and effect. If no one is buying your CPG products, you won't be in business all that much longer. CPG entrepreneurship is about hustle. There's no way of escaping it. And you're selling a physical good. So a lot of what you're going to do is sales, and you need to embrace that. And if you're not necessarily interested in sales, or maybe you're fearful of doing sales, not the industry for you. Another Jay-Z lyric that I find insightful and relevant to the CPG industry is recruited lieutenants with ludicrous dreams of getting cream. Let's do this. Just as I kind of mentioned in that last point around maybe not doing all the sales activities, you can't do everything. You ultimately need to hire great leadership people that are aligned with what you're seeking in terms of the vision of the business. You need to be able to trust them that they're going to have ambitious goals. Now, Jay-Z is kind of talking only through the lens of like money and acquiring sales and revenue. And while that's extremely important to sustain your business, you need to also understand that people aren't always going to be motivated purely by money. So you need to make sure that all of those kind of goals of your leadership team are aligned with your vision and make sure everybody's kind of going in the right direction. But if you have the choice between hiring somebody that's super ambitious, has ludicrous dreams and these big, hairy, audacious goals, and comparing that to somebody maybe that just has like a really strong skill set but doesn't have all those, you go with the person that has the ambition because you can teach the other things. And for my functional CPG entrepreneurs, this is arguably the most important Jay-Z lyric of all time. And this is where he mentioned that I dumbed down for my audience to double my dollars. If you're operating within some of those categories like functional foods, functional beverages, or nutritional supplements, this should be a lyric that you say. It should be a battle cry. It should be something you're constantly focusing in on because you're really trying to take that technical CPG product and distilling it down in a way that can appeal to the mass audience. Keep it simple, stupid. The acronym KISS. That is the goal that should be within any functional CPG brand. You shouldn't be seeking to get super sciencey and acting like you are a professor within the organic chemistry class that's lecturing to their student body. That's not the consumer market today. And the quicker you learn that, the more successful you will be. Another great lyric from Jay-Z is numbers don't lie, check the scoreboard. This lyric obviously speaks for itself. Talk is cheap, it's always been cheap, and numbers ultimately don't lie. So things like talking a big game online about how well you're doing and all these things that you're accomplishing, or maybe talking to a buyer at a sales meeting about how well the brand's doing and how much great things you could do for them. Or maybe you're in an investor pitch and you're talking about all these grand visions you have, but you don't actually have any numbers to back it up. You don't have strong metrics, strong revenue numbers that back up what you're saying. This is the type of like holes that would rival Swiss cheese. People are going to figure you out eventually. And no matter what you say as an entrepreneur and no matter what you promise, if those words don't translate to actual quantifiable data that has been proven that you know how to actually execute on what you're talking about, it's really a moot point and you're just selling a dream. One of the other great lyrics that I wanted to bring up was around I ain't past the bar, but I know a little bit. If you're going to be a CPG entrepreneur and you're going to operate within the CPG industry, you need to have some level of understanding of legal and regulatory that is associated with your category. Some might say that I'm over exaggerating, but this can really make or break your CPG brand by how well you understand things. If you're not able to read contracts, and you're not able to understand some basic kind of regulatory framework and some of the legal around what you're doing, you're going to get yourself in a ton of trouble. And then the last Jay-Z lyric that I want to talk about is people look at you strange, saying you changed, like you worked hard to stay the same. Any CPG brand that isn't kind of seeking continuous improvement likely won't be in business all that long. If you're not growing, you're dying. And some of your customers and maybe even some of your employees might not understand every strategy that you have going on within your CPG brand. But sometimes that's okay. Sometimes it's better to have the right people around you than having everyone around you, and is really an important part of the growing process. You need to surround yourself with the right people, be that internal, employees, stakeholders, customers, that push you and inspire you to be your best. I just want to end on some final thoughts. You can learn about business, be inspired about business from anywhere, and that motivation to succeed can really pop up anywhere. For me, a lot of the motivation, a lot of inspiration and lessons that I've learned throughout my life has really been strengthened through my enjoyment of hip hop music, through the lyrics that make those songs great. And I'm forever indebted to the artists that pass on their knowledge and experience through their music. For me, one of the best that's been doing it for more than 2.5 decades is Jay-Z. If you look at his lyrics, there's a ton of business references, entrepreneurship references, and what's even more impactful to the CPG industry is that Jay-Z has been a successful CPG entrepreneur. He has exited his businesses for hundreds of millions of dollars. He has invested in some really great brands in the space, have gotten exits from those. So it shouldn't be all that hard to see why Jay-Z should be someone that any CPG professional entrepreneur can definitely learn from. I hope you enjoyed this YouTube video. If you did, please consider watching the previous 2 episodes of this video series that surrounded the lyrics of Notorious B.I.G. and Nas. But if you have a favorite Jay-Z lyric that maybe I didn't mention, share that with me in the comment section below, or reach out to me on any of my social media accounts.